What's up? So what we're going to talk about is risk management. When you're investing, okay, nothing is more thrilling or exciting than to say that you nailed a whale. You know what I mean? When you're investing, when you're trading, and you see you reel in that big fish, and you're like, man, I just invested in this, and I made a killing. I was trading yesterday, and yesterday was huge. Like, of course, absolutely nothing is better than that. Nothing is a better feeling when you're talking about instant gratification. But when you're talking about long term, and if you've ever really taken the time to develop that skill set and know that you put in the work and know that, yeah, you made a good investment today, or you made a good investment yesterday, you've been trading today and it was good, but you know that that money's gonna keep on coming. Now that's where it's at, baby. That's the real deal. That's where you want to be. You don't want to be like, oh man, I traded this and I had a buddy, man, a buddy from college. We went to school together back in college, and he's a smart guy, a great guy, super fun, super exciting. He has his feelings and views about the economic system in our society right now, which is fair. I respect his feelings. Me and him agree on a lot as far as, positivity and building people up and things like that. But when it comes to, where the economy is and what's affecting the economy, we both have different perspectives. And he's, he just wants to get his piece, kind of, so to speak, I remember, he called me, or he texted me. He texted me and he was like, hey man, you're not gonna believe this. I just scored off of, AMC, when AMC was hitting hard. I told him, I was like, it's not done, right? It's a long-term score, right? I was like, I invested in AMC a couple months back because I saw this coming, and I'm holding out. It's not done. And he was like, nah, man. He's like, I'm getting in, I'm getting out. And I was like, okay. I was like, his mentality was he wanted a turn and burn stock. And AMC was a good one for a turn and burn. AMC was also good for longevity, though. Eventually, it was time for me to part ways with AMC, with my shares of AMC. I kept them for long enough. I had AMC for several months. I watched things change. I watched things go up. But I also watched the things that are happening in the economy that I felt like it was going to level off. I saw things. I saw little nuances in the market that was like, you know what? I could hold off for longer because there is some more money to be made. But at the time, I was looking for more liquidity. I needed more that I could leverage into other assets. And so for me, at that time, it was time for me to go. And that's fair. And you know what? His stance was fair. I'm not telling you that his stance was wrong. And I'm not telling you that if you think like him, that you're wrong. But if you're here watching my channel, watching my videos, I want to believe that you're here because you want to actually build financial freedom. You want to build long-term wealth. You want to build something greater for your family and for your life. So you're not going to just sit back and rest on, hey man, I was able to turn and burn this stock, and when's going to be the next one? Because the reality is, turn and burn stocks, yes, they do happen. They do. They absolutely happen. And they happen all the time. But do they happen frequently enough that you can make a living off of it? No, they don't. They really don't. I mean, unless you've got like millions to leverage. And if you've got millions to leverage, what do you need to turn and burn stock for? If you've got millions to leverage, you could do something smarter with that money. So ultimately, if you're looking to make a better life and grow some wealth, you've got to do some risk management. You've got to really weigh in and say, what is it that I'm doing here? What is it I'm investing in? When am I going to see my profit, my return? What's the likeliness that I might lose some of that money? And am I willing to lose that money? Too many people don't want to look at it like that. They're just like, well, I got $200, so what can I do with that $200? Let's see if I can double down. Double down? This isn't gambling. This isn't gambling. Now, I got no beef with terminology, man. I throw slang around all the time. Family and friends have been giving me a hard time because I'm a grown man still using slang I was using when I was back in elementary school or middle school. It's just kind of ingrained in who I am. It's like even hard to turn it off from time to time. My slang comes out in my videos and I'm sitting here trying to sound professional. And it just happens because I'm talking casually to y'all, so things come out. But the reality is, like I said, the slang isn't what I have a problem with. It's the mentality. The mentality is where you're off. It doesn't matter if you sound professional if your mentality's off. It doesn't matter if you're using slang. It only matters if that slang is where your mentality's at. So when people say the phrase double down, typically you're thinking like blackjack. You're thinking like roulette. Man, and yes, absolutely, there comes some skill into some of the, not roulette, there's no skill in roulette, but there is some skill in blackjack, there's some skill in poker, there's some skill in these things, obviously, but when it comes down to it, what we're talking about is gambling. Gambling. Stop gambling your money. If you want to gamble your money, go play the lottery. Go play poker. Poker's more fun. I can sit around with a couple of buddies, have a beer, have some whiskey, throw down on some barbecue or some pizza or whatever, and we could just sit here and, play some cards for like 4 hours. I lose a lot less money. Maybe walk out with some of my buddies' money. But at the end of the night, I had a great time, regardless of whether I lost some or won some. If you're playing the stock market, if you're doing day trading, if you're doing Forex and you're gambling, man, you got it all wrong. So what I want to do is I want to talk about like what it is you need to do and what you need to understand. Like I said, when you go into a stock, when you're investing into a stock, you need to know your perspective. So like I said, if you're here, I'm going to assume that either one of two things. Either you've already decided, hey, I'm watching CoreyB's channel because I'm trying to, get some tips. I'm trying to build my financial wealth. I'm trying to build my financial freedom and build something greater for my future. Or maybe you're one of those who just haven't been convinced yet, but you're on the fence. You might be ready to change your way of thinking. So let's work on that. Okay, so when you're going to do investing, don't gamble. Don't just jump in on a stock because it's a hot button. Don't jump in a stock because, oh man, I remember it was about 13 years ago, maybe 14. It was like 2009, 2010. And I remember Bill Gates was actually working on a phone company. And it was weird because he's notoriously known as a computer guy, but he's a genius. And I remember my uncle hit me up and was like, dude, check this out, man. He's like, there's Bill, I just read this article. Let me send it to you. He's like, Bill Gates is working on this phone, developing this cellular company. And I was like, really? And he was like, yeah, man, I read this whole article about it. It's crazy. And I was like, all right, cool. And he's like, we got to put aside some money right now because apparently it's supposed to be, up and going in the next few months. He's like, let's put aside some money because this man's a genius. Anything he touches turns to gold. Don't ever buy a stock just because of a figurehead. Don't put your hard-earned money into another man because that man is a genius. Maybe he is a genius. I'm not even questioning his brilliance. Bill Gates is brilliant. Anybody who believes otherwise, you may like him, you may not like him, but at the end of the day, he has a brain and it works. Does anything and everything he touched turn to gold? No. No. He'll be the first one to admit that he doesn't always know what he's doing, but he sees potential in things. There's people who are skeptical about his reasons, and I'm not going to get into that because I'm not going to get into a political thing here. But the reality is that it was going on 20 years ago now that he started buying up all this farmland. people think it's some big conspiracy now. But, and oddly enough, it's only been in the last 2 or 3 years that for some reason people are like, can you believe he did this? And they think he just did it. No, he bought it 20 years ago. Count your sources. I mean, verify where you're getting your information from. So like I said, he bought up this farmland about 20 years ago, and it was 2001, 2002. No, that's not right. It was early 2000, maybe 2004. I remember seeing him in an interview, and I saw him on TV, and he was talking about, he was like, hey, so I'm buying up all this land, and people were like, well, what is it that you're doing? And he said, honestly, at the time, and like I said, there's some people conspiracy theorists who believe otherwise, but at the time, he was like, I don't really know what I'm doing. All I know is I found land that's cheap. And if I found land that's cheap, eventually it's got to be worth something, right? Especially farmland. Okay, like I said, without getting into the whole, political thing, it's like at the end of the day, he felt like he saw value in something and started buying it up. Mark Cuban's been known to do that several times. Kevin O'Leary's done it a handful of times. These are people who have pockets, they have money, they see potential in something. They're like, I'm not sure how that's going to make money, but I know that it's got money into it. So they want a piece of it. They don't want to let it slip past them. I remember there was a time when me and Kimberly, we had just got married, been married about 2 months, and it's still, I saw this piece of land. Because me and her were both working on this job site. This job site that we were working on, we were developing, it doesn't matter. We were working at this job site. She was doing the books, and I was assistant superintendent on the job site. And when I was going out there, because it was about 45 minutes out of town where they were developing these luxury homes. So when I was driving out there, there was a shorter way that you'd kind of hit a bunch of, traffic and stuff. But there was a longer way that was real scenic and everything. But going through there, one day I saw off in the woods, there was a sign. And I was like, what in the world? And so I checked it out, and there was literally a sign, and it was a piece of land. It was like, and, oh, man. It still bothers me 10 years later. Still bothers me. But I saw this piece of land, and it was so cheap. It was like dirt cheap. But at the time, I was like, we had just got married. We just got married. We just came back from our honeymoon. And I was like, now's not the time to just, drop some money. I was like, maybe we should, think about it, pray on it. And sure enough, I went back to look at it, like, wasn't 2 months later, it was gone. It was sold. It was done. Done deal. So sometimes you sleep on things and you miss out. I can't tell you how many times I kicked myself for passing on that land. But you know what? Sometimes you sleep on something and it's like God's got something bigger from you. My buddy always reminds me of one of my great partners, reminds me all the time. He's one of my partners that we do investing with, and his expertise is in risk management, which is what we're talking about today. And his expertise is in risk management. And he always talks about, he's like, man, it's better to sleep on something and miss it than to roll the dice on something you're not sure about. If you roll the dice on something you're not sure about, that's your money. You worked hard for that money. That's your livelihood. And when are you going to get it back? How are you going to get it back? How are you going to undo what you just did? So that's the thing you've got to always take into consideration. So when you're ready to invest into the stock market, you got to know the stocks that you're trying to invest into. You got to believe in the business that you're investing into. You've got to do some research. You got to do do valid research on the company, on what's happening in the company, not just hear, oh, I saw this on, it was on the news, so it must be good, right? It was on the news, so it must be, it must be viable. This new, they never talk about IPOs on the news. They just talked about this one. It's got to mean something, right? No, not necessarily. Necessarily doesn't mean anything. First of all, you have to remember that news, everybody wants to believe that news is valid sources of information, which, yes, they should not lie. But at the end of the day, what are they? They are a business. They're a business. So I'm running a business, right? This is my business. This is my news station, right? So my news station. And my best friend from college hits me up and says, yo, man, check it out. He's like, I'm about to drop this, new IPO. I'm opening my new company. I'm doing this, I'm doing that, or whatever. Do you think y'all can do a cover story on the news for me? I'm a person who has a pretty strong integrity. But at the same time, is it wrong that I help him? I don't think so. Because at the end of the day, unless I'm telling a lie about him, what's wrong with it? So that's what you have to remember. It's like they're a business. They're owned by somebody. And that somebody is allowed to put whatever information and content they want on the news. Does not mean that news. That means that news is going to get ratings. That's an overall, that's what's important. They want to put something like Elon Musk, who's frequently scandalous. And whether he even should be scandalous or not, he just frequently is. He's a polarizing personality. People love him and people hate him. So the news reports want to talk about him because when they talk about him, they're gonna get attention. They're gonna get attention from the people who dislike him because they want to jump on there and be like, what stupid thing has he done now? They're gonna get people who do like him because they want to see what great thing is he up to. These are the things that you got to remember. Never invest based on what you heard in the media. Never invest based on what you saw on social media. This is not risk management. You manage your risk by weighing your options. What do I have to gain? What do I have to lose? How likely is my profitability based on this valuation of this company, based on this valuation of this stock? When you're doing things like Forex, it's a little more, it's a different kind of complication. When you're doing Forex, you're gauging trends. Have you studied the trend? Have you studied trends before this? Do you know what you're looking for in a trend? Do you know what the peaks and valleys? Do you know what the pivot points are? Do you know what the reversal is? Do you know what these things are? If you know what these things are, okay, have you studied this particular move? Have you studied this? Do you see something? Or do you know what you're leveraging? Okay, then if you feel like, okay, you've got all that information down, you know what the stock or the currency is that you're investing in, you know what you're trading against, you know what you're swapping out, and then how much are you going to leverage? What lot size are you going to buy? How much money are you going to put out there? How much are you willing to risk? This is risk management. You've got to take into consideration what you're putting out there, what your possible return is, and is it worth taking that leverage point? Is it worth making that move? These are the things you have to consider. These are the things that are going to affect your bankroll in the end. These are the things that are going to affect if you're profitable or if you're not. I feel like this is a lot of redundant information at this point, but it's the things that we overlook. You've got to manage your risk, and you've got to remember that this is not gambling. If you ever think, oh, I'm just gonna take a chance, that's not investing, and that's not trading, that's gambling. If you're gambling, you're in the wrong place. If you're gambling in the wrong place, better places to gamble. More fun, more exciting, better atmosphere, better vibe, better people, better everything. If you want to gamble, go gamble. If you want to build something for your future, let's manage your risk, let's manage your money. Let's know where it's at and know what the potential profits are and what the potential losses are. If you don't know your gains and your losses, man, what are you doing? If you can't look at something and say, hey, I have this X amount of potential of money profitable, then why'd you roll the dice? Why'd you go in if you didn't know what you could possibly gain from it? If you didn't know what you could lose, then why'd you go in? Why'd you leverage if you didn't? You have to know. You have to know where you're at. be sure you're aware of your money. Be sure you're aware of what you're leveraging. Be sure you're aware of what your possible outcomes are. Sometimes double and triple check it before you pull that trigger. Because a bell can't be unrung. It's that simple. Once your money's gone, it's gone. There is no, can I get a do-over? It's not how it works. All right, I hope some of this is resonating. I hope you marinate on this. I hope you get something out of all this. And I hope that you start building towards a brighter future, build a more secure spot for yourself, so that way you can establish some financial freedom and establish sooner rather than later. And then once you get to that point that you've got capital, you've got liquidity, and you've got some financial freedom where you're no longer dependent upon your 9-to-5 or your side hustle there, your side hustle here, and you want to start investing more and growing more business, oh, we'll get into that too. So y'all stay tuned, because it doesn't stop here. We're going to keep on growing. We're going to keep on making money. And we're going to keep on building a future and developing strong financial freedom for all of us. That's it. Make good choices. Gauge your risk. Let's get out there and get cocky and get it done. It's your boy. Until next time, I'm out.